It's just past 6:30 in the morning here in Maseru, the capital city of Lesotho. It may be early, but these men and women are already well on their way to their apparel factory jobs. 5 years ago, many of these jobs didn't even exist in this tiny mountain kingdom, one of the least developed countries in the world. But then the U.S. government introduced the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, almost overnight. Nearly 55,000 jobs were created in Lesotho's garment industry, which exported $448 million in goods just to the U.S. alone in 2004.
These jobs were created specifically because of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Companies located here because of the combination of quotas and the fact that they can source third country fabric from Asia.
This meant that some of the poorest African countries, like Lesotho, had duty-free access to the American market.
Look at AGOA, the whole point to it is to change the relationship with Africa from aid dependency to commercial partnership. And it's lifted 500,000 people out of poverty in Lesotho alone.
AGOA is one of the many trade preference programs that richer countries like the U.S. offer to lesser developed nations. The European Union has long given its former colonies preferential access to its markets. But AGOA is different because of its liberal rules of origin on apparel. At its peak, AGOA created some 150,000 jobs across southern Africa, including Madagascar, Mauritius, Swaziland, Botswana, Namibia, as well as Lesotho. AGOA has given Maneo Matsepe a job and opportunities she thought she'd never have. Maneo is one of the 1,500 employees at the Shining Century garment factory. Nearly every T-shirt she inspects ultimately finds its way into stores in the United States. But this job is Maneo's first ever, only the beginning for this 22-year-old woman.
This factory helped me to go to school. I go to school to renew my studies because I want to go further. I just want to be an accountant. So my mother does not have money to take me to school, so I come here.
Jennifer Chen, Shining Century's managing director, encourages ambition like Maneo's. She says turnover isn't a problem if it means her employees are moving on to bigger and better things.
Some of our employees, they after they have some earning income, then they will request to go further for education. So they apply to go back to school. Some of they have this interest to learn, to upgrade their education. Then we are happy for that.
Chen moved to Lesotho from Taiwan 18 years ago. She has embraced the country and has even become a citizen. And since AGOA's preferences began to take effect, she has also seen the transformation of her factory and of her adopted homeland.
So I was born here.
Thanks to her salary from Chen's Shining Century, Maneo not only has enough money to pay her school fees, she can also support her family.
They didn't have money, they were staying at home, no food, nothing. They get sick, no money to go to the doctors. But now that the factories are here in Lesotho, they can go to the doctors, feed their children, send their children to school.
It's a multiplier effect felt beyond the factory floor. This is the crowded scene in front of every bank in Maseru on the last Friday of the month. It's payday, and one of the best examples of how AGOA jobs in Southern Africa are injecting money into the economy, as those garment industry wages are spent and spread throughout the country. Every weekday at noon, taxi drivers and food stall owners gather to do business in Maseru's garment district.
We have concentrated all our efforts on the textile industry deliberately because the textile industry is labor intensive. It is a major contributor towards the fight against poverty and unemployment.
Still, travel half a mile down this road to hippo knitting, and inside you'll catch an unsettling glimpse of the future. Yes, AGOA has been a huge success, but expiring trade preferences threaten to unravel what has been achieved. In January 2005, quota restrictions under the World Trade Organization Agreement on textiles and clothing ended. Africa now has to compete in the $61 billion American apparel market.
When quotas were lifted overnight, Prices had to drop by 37 to 55% overnight just to get the orders.
At Hippo Knitting, it meant reducing costs. Hippo had to cut jobs, and the work week went down to 4 days.
But with us, I think as a country, the major problem was the strengthening of the rand vis-a-vis the dollar, which brought about a bit of a disastrous situation for us at the same time as when a major preference was being eroded.
So Hippo's costs increased with the higher currency, just as it lost a competitive advantage with the end of quotas. To make things worse, the company also produces fleece garments. This kind of clothing is heavier and bulkier than t-shirts, which translates into higher transportation expenses.
Take a look behind you. All of these women here, every single one of them is here because of the African Growth and Opportunity Act. It's their first job out of the informal sector, and it'd be a shame if they lost it.
But what about the third country fabric provision under AGOA? This allows Africa to export garments duty-free to America, even if they're made with Asian-produced fabric. That provision is set to expire in September 2007. So unless these countries can source that same quality fabric from Africa, their products will become even more expensive as they incur import duties at the U.S. border. Suddenly, all those people who had found better lives through these jobs might find themselves right back where they started, before AGOA.
I mean, on one hand, the entire world in WTO says reduce barriers to trade, and particularly reduce barriers to trade in the developed world. That's great, but when you do that, all of a sudden you have fewer trick ponies that you can bring out into the ring and say, here, we can give you special access under this rule. And the expiration of the quota system, which was already anticipated in WTO agreements, the reduction of tariffs, it's quite clear that unless certain changes are made, that many of these jobs, in fact, may go away.
If 2007 brings an end to third country fabric, then Southern Africa must find a way to produce its own material.
What we did was to try and move on aggressively to identify investors that could move in and give us the vertical integration that we needed.
The result? The largest denim mill in sub-Saharan Africa, conceived in 2001 and completed in 2004. Formosa Textiles spent $130 million on its state-of-the-art facility. It met the AGOA deadline and could now supply its apparel factories with its own fabric. Today, its Ninxing facility in Maseru produces 60 to 70,000 pairs of jeans a day for its American customers like The Gap and Levi Strauss.
The quality of the fabric, which is produced by our denim mill, is much better than what is imported from China.
Right now, many American retailers prefer the cheaper Chinese denim to Formosa's Lesotho-produced fabric. But that will change after 2007 if the third country fabric provision is not extended and duties are levied on products made from non-African made material. And that will make Formosa's higher quality, duty-free denim look like an excellent investment. Yet when it comes to knitted fabrics like cotton, Southern Africa and factories like Shining Century and Hippo Knitting are still wholly reliant on Asian imports.
This type of factory needs a number of different fabrics, maybe 80 different types, many different colors. There is some ability to source from South Africa, but they just cannot source the volumes on price or quality from South Africa. So they need to source it from Asia and other places, so they're flexible.
Why isn't there more textiles production in Southern Africa? It's expensive to do business here, and there's uncertainty surrounding the extension of third country fabric. It was originally set to expire in 2004, when it was extended until September 2007. The U.S. Congress will determine whether to extend it once again beyond 2007.
The implication of a further extension would be a downside for us and for the Lesotho textiles industry, because everyone's still relying on imports, and that will not attract industry here. This loses the spirit of AGOA to create opportunity and growth in the region.
Some say Southern Africa's countries and companies need more time to develop a viable textiles industry. Many others question if it's even possible, given the competition from countries like Bangladesh, China, and India. They suggest that Africa will always need to source fabric from outside.
In the short term, in order to be able to continue to build on the industry, protect the jobs that have been created to date under AGOA, one needs to go ahead and extend the third country fabric provision.
The fact that we are able to accommodate this big, textile garments, manufacturing industry speaks a lot in the sense that this economy was able to support it in terms of its skilled labor, the expertise that we have acquired, and because the industry also imparted a lot of expertise through challenges that it gave us.
And now these southern African countries understand they have to build upon the initial successes of the apparel industry and diversify their economies further.
We are also looking now at diversifying outside of the textile and garment sector per se. That is, look at other investments. Investments, particularly those that utilize the natural resource base that we have in agriculture, agro-base, to go into processing, to go into manufacturing.
Well-established fruit processor Swazican has cornered a large portion of the world's market share in canned citrus. And now it's diversifying into fruit cups, hoping that it will give the company further inroads into the U.S. market. Processed food products enjoy a higher tariff advantage under AGOA. This gives an opportunity for agricultural producers and makers of specialty food products like sauces and jams to expand exports. And they will benefit from AGOA for the full duration of the program until 2015. For now, the apparel industry is driving the economies of Southern Africa's smaller nations. One solution: shy away from the low-cost, low-margin mass production of inexpensive T-shirts.
And some companies have actually started producing high-value, high-tariff products that are now being exported into the United States. And there seems to be hope that if that trend grows, these producers are going to continue.
In Lesotho, this high-value approach has a rock star quality. U2's Bono and his wife, Ali Hewson, chose this factory to produce 100,000 T-shirts for the band's recent world tour. They're doing it all through their socially conscious clothing company, Eden, which aims to bring the issue of sustainable employment to high fashion.
We want to do something that's positive for this region, but it actually feeds into what we're doing from a marketing perspective, in the sense that we can yield a higher price, because the reason people will be buying our clothes is because of what we're doing. So.
Well, in America, we're in some leading stores like Saks, Nordstrom's, Barney's. In Canada, we're in Holt Renfrew, as well as being in specialty boutique stores.
If their skill level goes up, then it gives a chance for designers, African designers, to actually play a role in this process as well. But as long as they're still producing basic T-shirts, it only becomes a price issue.
Yet today, it's the production of those basic T-shirts that keeps Mineo employed and in school. So industry and government are trying to tackle the problem of dwindling preferences on a more basic level.
What they had come to rely on and saying maybe in the last even 15, 20 years ago, doesn't work anymore. You need to have really open economies. You need to have really open currency exchange rules. You need to have a regulatory environment that is not very costly in which to open up a new business or to make goods cross borders easily. You need very open and transparent customs and transport facilities. And Africa is behind the curve compared to Asia or other places that investors look to when they think of where they're going to put money.
At Jennifer Chen's Shining Century factory in Lesotho, there's a sense of urgency. Chen heads the local Garment Producers Association. She's pushing to improve the country's business environment in an effort to save her business. AGOA and Jennifer Chen have a common goal: a commercial partnership with Africa to help alleviate the crushing poverty that has afflicted this region for so long. She says she's committed to stay here for the rest of her life to make that happen.
Maybe I can say it's a kind of destiny. I'm feeling to come here like this is my place.